Racing success relies on having the best birds for racing. Over the past 5 years, I've dedicated a significant amount of time to thorough research, seeking elusive details about individual pigeons that consistently rank in the top 2% in union races. The results of my research have been remarkable and well worth the effort. When searching for a quality pigeon, it's crucial to consider the conditions and health of the loft it comes from. Surprisingly, some of the most optimal racing pigeons are found in small and unlikely lofts, making them rare finds. Interestingly, I've discovered that lofts with a large number of pigeons or those that send many pigeons to races tend to have a lower proportion of high-performing pigeons. In other words, lofts with numerous pigeons in one place are counterproductive. While such lofts may have a few exceptional pigeons, the ratio of pigeons to performance differs significantly compared to lofts with fewer birds. Just like putting too many people in a room, overcrowding a loft reduces efficiency, leading to discomfort and potential issues like depression and irritability among pigeons. Therefore, to obtain more top-quality racing pigeons, it's essential to maintain an appropriate ratio of pigeons to loft space, ensuring optimal conditions for them to thrive. Panting in racing pigeons after exercise. Any healthy and fit racing pigeon that engages in intense flying within a short period will pant. This panting is similar to a marathon runner catching their breath after a sprint, as birds pant to recover from the oxygen deficit caused by the burst of activity. Frequent falcon attacks can cause birds to exhibit reluctance to leave the loft and fly further. They may instead fly in tight circles around the loft, driven by fear of encountering falcons. Each country experiences its peak falcon and hawk activity season, and during this time, fearful behavior in birds may be observed. If you notice a high level of fear in your racing team, even when hawk and falcon activity decreases, it may have become a habit. To break this habit and build the bird's confidence in flying without fear, short tosses for 7 to 10 days can be beneficial. Additionally, these tosses provide the necessary exercise for the birds. Panting after exercise can be considered a positive sign when observed in a few birds following a training toss. It indicates that the team is fit and pushing themselves to the limit. The tossing exercises improve their overall fitness. Healthy yet unfit birds will recover quickly, and their droppings will remain normal, indicating good overall health. However, birds that return home panting and take longer to recover should be examined for potential underlying causes of panting and reduced endurance. Continuing to toss sick birds will only worsen their illness, prolonging recovery time. Changes in droppings, such as turning green or watery, may be indicators of illness. Additionally, pay attention to the muscles of exercised birds. If birds are essentially fit but have been pushed beyond their capacity, their muscles may appear bluish and become tense due to cramping. This can also occur in birds that are ill but forced to engage in physical activity. Consistency in breeding. It is advisable to maintain around 4 separate lines within the pigeon family, although having 5 or 6 lines is also acceptable if space permits. These lines should be kept separate and maintained through flying and breeding. Crossbreeding between these lines can be done when necessary. With proper care, a line can be maintained for 15 to 20 years without much complication. After that, introducing new blood may be necessary to invigorate the genes. However, caution should be exercised when introducing new blood, as inferior bloodlines may undermine the progress made. To find new blood, seek out someone who is successfully. To maintain consistency in breeding, it is recommended to have around 4 separate lines within the pigeon family. If space permits, having 5 or 6 lines is also acceptable. These lines should be kept separate and preserved through flying and breeding. When needed, you can crossbreed between these lines. By maintaining these lines, you can sustain them for 15 to 20 years with relative ease. However, after that period, introducing new blood may be necessary to rejuvenate the gene pool. When seeking new bloodlines, it's crucial to be mindful of the time and effort invested in building your existing line. Bringing in inferior blood would not be a desirable option. Finding someone who has established a loft of consistent birds that align with your racing philosophy can be helpful when seeking new bloodlines. It may take some trial and error to find the right match, and sometimes the offspring or grandchildren of the new additions can be the ones that excel. Remember, in the beginning, it's akin to casting a net to catch fish. You may not acquire anything worth keeping in the first few attempts. It requires multiple tries, and only the best pigeons should be retained. Once your family of pigeons is established, your primary focus should be on nurturing and developing your own line. Avoid the temptation to continuously acquire pigeons from different families, as you will not experience the true satisfaction of building a consistent line. Introducing new birds brings in a host of new genetic material that needs to be assessed and culled. The more time you spend on this process, the less attention you can give to improving your line. While it's acceptable to try out different pigeons initially to determine what suits your needs, it's important to commit to your chosen line after that. Continuously purchasing pigeons and succumbing to the addiction of acquiring new blood will lead to flying someone else's work. This may suit some individuals, but it doesn't align with the mindset of a dedicated breeder. Some may claim that siblings of champions produce the best results. However, this indicates that the family has not yet been firmly established. In a well-established family, the champions themselves should produce the finest offspring. This is evidence of a family built upon proven champion bloodlines. Once you recognize the traits of a champion, such as confidence displayed in their expression, you will have a better understanding of what to look for. There is nothing quite like a true, air-proven athlete. Enjoy your journey in pigeon racing, and remember that it is ultimately for your own enjoyment. Have fun along the way. For those about to start in pigeons, preparing to breed. When experienced fanciers talk about condition, they are not necessarily referring to a pigeon's health and physical well-being in general terms. Why not? Because there are at least 3 kinds of condition that a fancier put on his birds. They are, 1. Show condition, 2. Racing condition, 3. Mating condition. I do not have to dilate on show and racing condition in this chapter, but I am obliged to comment on the kind of condition you must put on pigeons at the time of bringing them together for breeding purposes, i.e. the mating condition. Normally, the birds will have wintered in a loft in which the nest boxes were closed and for a period during which the sexes were separated. When the month of March approaches, your duty will be to bring the birds together so that they mate and nest. It is the general condition of the birds at this time that comprises mating condition, and I do not exaggerate when I say that the mating condition is very important. The winter diet and rest, particularly the separation if you wintered them in accordance with my previous advice. They will have spent great deal of time on perches and rested through long nights with no cares or worries to disturb them. The effect of this long vacation from road work and domestic life will be in their stored up energy. You will have spent the winter with pencil and paper, making a list of your spring matings, so that you know which cock to mate with which hen. But do not let your impatience to put them to nest destroy your prudence and caution. Let us do first things first. For instance, it is inadvisable to mate pigeons until you are sure that they are physically and medically ready for coupling. Therefore, a fortnight before you intend to mate them, carry out a proper inspection of the birds, looking for signs of anemia, extra pale mouth and throat linings, and respiratory trouble. Note the progress of the molt, any short feathers or rough flights, frets and so on. Let your inspection be very thorough by according plenty of time to each bird. Remember, if the bird cannot be seen to be in good nick, it is sheerest folly to mate it. One thing you cannot see is the inside condition of the bird's organs and body cavities. Therefore, you do not proceed on the assumption that what can't be seen must be all right, but you take precautions against the possibility of the bird not being as perfect inside as it appears to be outside. The very first thing to do is deworm all the birds. This is a must. What about fat? Some will say that birds that have sat about on perches during a long winter will have built up layers of fat inside as well as outside. Well, there is a modicum of truth in this assertion. The birds will be carrying a little extra fat if they have been fed properly. However, remember that the moment they are mated, they are going to work off most of this fat through the process of 1. Driving and nesting, 2. An almost total disregard for the hopper and its contents. Driving cocks and driven hens eat very little, this being nature's device for ensuring that the birds shall not be fat when mated. After 8 days of chasing, trotting and wing flapping on a purely token diet, very little fat will remain on them from the winter store. Mating condition has no affinity with show and racing condition because it is derived from physical exhaustion and malnutrition, whereas show and racing conditions are the product of rest, carefully calculated exercise and good diets. Now you will appreciate why I advised you to set a hopper charged with beans before the birds all through the winter months. Compare the condition of birds about to mate when one lot has been wintered on a cheap cereal diet, barley and such like cereals, while the other has lived on beans. The former will carry as much fat or more, there being nothing like cereals for putting fat on man and beast alike, but the cereal-fed type will be constitutionally weaker due to being wintered on a low-protein diet. It doesn't require much straining of the brain to imagine which lot is going to be the fittest after 8 days of driving and being driven, on a very meager diet. Apart from general health at the time of mating, a fancier must also pay regard to his bird's metabolic condition. This is to say the condition of the blood, for what could be more important at the time of propagating a new life? The condition of both cock and hen at time of coming together for mating is of the utmost importance to the breeder. I have heard it claimed that one must purify the blood at such a time if the best results are to be achieved. In my opinion, we hear far too much of this word pure in relation to pigeon matters. A gem may have to be of the purest ray serene, but when I talk about a pigeon's health and blood condition, I prefer to use the word enrichment, and I prefer to attain this blood enrichment by special treatment of the birds after their long winter's layoff. Chief among the blood enrichments, and one could draw up a list of them that would stretch from London to Manchester, are calcium and iodine plus the vitamins. Here again, the list of vitamins available for fanciers becomes longer and longer, so long that we are compelled to sort out the imperative few and ignore the rest. Once on eggs, the birds will again start to bloom because of the enforced rest during the period of incubation, 18.5 days, and the open hopper. Trouble does not, or should not, again raise its ugly head until the parents start to feed youngsters. Here are a few more words of caution. When brought together after a long winter of rest and sexual segregation, the birds will tend to mate in something of a frenzy. They will, at this first coming together, display 3 or 4 times the passion, excitement and energy that they will put into subsequent nesting that season. This is a pity because much of the stored energy of winter will be dissipated in this first mating orgy. Nor will 18.5 days of comparative peace and quiet totally restore the lost energy before the birds start to waste it again through the labors of feeding hungry nestlings. A very great fancier once claimed that the rearing of a nest pair imposed a strain on the parents equal to flying a 500-mile race. Of course, he was right. Therefore, I advise you to raise only one youngster in the nest of birds that are due to be raced this season, and they should receive the blood enrichment treatment right through the rearing period. A fancier's work is never done. Nor does the time ever arrive when he can relax his vigilance. When spring comes, it brings something more than an improvement in the weather. It brings the big battalions of parasites that reckon to batten on your birds until winter comes round again. I beseech you to pay heed and attention to this invisible but real menace. I am sure that most of you now use the special loft compound, so be liberal with it on floor, perch and nest box the moment the birds are mated. If you do not follow this advice, you may go into the loft one morning to find squeakers frozen to death in nest bowls. Why? Because invading night hosts drove the parents off the nest bowls. In the breeding season, I receive many letters from novices who ask why their youngsters, now well feathered but still unable to fly, will not stay in nest bowls but scamper out the moment they are returned to them. It is because the red, white or gray mite is attacking them and making their life miserable, as well as painful. Novices should visit their lofts at night time, creeping up on slippered feet so as not to disturb the birds, and stand at the rear or side of the loft and listen. If you can hear the stamping of feet on perches, the rustling and knocking of feathers as the birds shake in abortive attempts to throw off their parasites, you will know for sure that the mites are at work. Better be safe than be sorry.
No serious champion sells his best wrecking bird unless he knows it's a poor breeder.
Now, I think another point that people overlook, they go fancier. You go to an auction and you'll buy an imported pigeon in the auction and spend a lot of money on it. You can liken it to going to the garden centre and buying one seed, one little seed, and plant it and hope you're going to get the perfect flower.
To found a new loft of pigeons, which I've had to do here, I've had to do it twice well, 3 times actually in a lifetime. It's not necessarily a matter of going out and spending fortunes on top pigeons. I want just a pigeon with a name and a pedigree. I want it off something that's done the job, and done the job what I'm looking for.
Pure strains of pigeons don't really exist anywhere at all, only in the magazines and books and in the back of people's minds. The big sellers with pigeons, they have all the so-called strains. But if you go to any of these strains and really examine them, or a top fancier that they say it's his strain, it comes from 3, 4 or even 5 different families.
Inbreeding and line breeding and all that's all nonsense. 90% of the superbirds are all crossings. But foreign people want inbreed, and I don't understand. We want good pigeons, and good pigeons are crossings.
You don't have to put 2 pigeons of the same strain together. You want good pigeons to good pigeons. All the main lofts in Belgium, the super lofts, do this. They don't have a strain. Nobody.
Countries like China, Taiwan and America, where they all have their own family and their own strain. That's such nonsense. Everybody here must laugh when they hear such a farmer say, I raise my Jansens, I have my Meulemans, I have, what we have is crossings. Sometimes I feel sorry for those people. How can they be so naive? Nobody has a family.
Gabby van der Bielen, one of the most talked about fanciers at this present time, he doesn't have a strain. He's got different pigeons from all over. But people, they must have a certain strain. And that, to me, that's where a lot of them go wrong.
And I said always, don't buy one pigeon. Go buy a fancier, and in the middle of the season, or on the last season, September youngsters. And that's are the best.
When I go to the garden centre, I buy a packet of seeds. And for me, the best way to improve your loft is to go to a good fancier. Somebody that's winning, somebody that's got good pigeons. They don't have to cost thousands of pounds. And they most certainly won't if you go to a fancier.
I would actually go out and buy summer hatched youngsters for reasonable money of a good family and then start from there.
I would advise someone new in the sport to go to a small guy with super results and buy eggs there. Preferably in summer, then he doesn't need them for himself. That's the cheapest one.
Strains refers to the lineage and breeding of a pigeon. Having pigeons from proven racing lines can potentially give them an advantage, as certain traits for speed, endurance, homing ability, etc. have been selectively bred into those birds over generations. That said, good training, handling, nutrition and overall health are also extremely important factors in developing racing pigeons that excel. An experienced fancier can take birds that are not from elite strains and still be successful through expertise in these other areas. Racing ability involves many genetic and environmental factors working together. While strain can give a boost, it does not guarantee success on its own. The fancier's skills and methods play a huge role as well. There are examples of champions coming from relatively unknown or mixed strain backgrounds. The key is finding birds with natural racing aptitude and maximizing their potential. So in summary, pedigree and strain may help, but are not strictly necessary to be competitive in pigeon racing. Focus on choosing healthy, vigorous birds and providing excellent care, training and nutrition. An average pigeon that is well managed can sometimes outperform a top-strain bird that is not cared for as well.
There are many reasons to buy my racing pigeon method. Here are some of the best reasons. You will get excellent results. It's a very simple system to use. It's affordable. I have had over 400 first prize winners. It's adaptable to any situation. You can use it with any racing method, natural, widowhood, young birds. It's a very effective method. There is no need to spend a lot of money on fancy pigeon products. It's a reliable system and it is foolproof to use. Professional athletes, race horses, take the same products. There is science behind this, not just hearsay. It is all to do with red blood cells and oxygen in the blood. Without that, a pigeon will not race well, or an athlete will not win a race. If he has low oxygen in his blood, the above is fact and is 100% science. There are a few things you can do to improve your chances of winning at racing pigeons. One of the most important things is to learn as much as you can about the sport. You'll need to know the different types of pigeons, how to train them, and how to race them. Another key factor is practice. You'll need to be able to fly your pigeons competently in order to win races. And, of course, you'll need to have the funds to invest in racing pigeons and other racing equipment. There are many reasons to buy my racing pigeon method. Here are some of the best reasons. You will get excellent results. It's a very simple system to use. It's affordable. I have had over 400 first prize winners. It's adaptable to any situation. You can use it with any racing method, natural, widowhood, young birds. It's a very effective method. There is no need to spend a lot of money on fancy pigeon products. It's a reliable system and it is foolproof to use. Professional athletes, race horses, take the same products. There is science behind this, not just hearsay. It is all to do with red blood cells and oxygen in the blood. Without that, a pigeon will not race well, or an athlete will not win a race. If he has low oxygen in his blood, the above is fact and is 100% science. There are a few things you can do to improve your chances of winning at racing pigeons. One of the most important things is to learn as much as you can about the sport. You'll need to know the different types of pigeons, how to train them, and how to race them. Another key factor is practice. You'll need to be able to fly your pigeons competently in order to win races. And, of course, you'll need to have the funds to invest in racing pigeons and other racing equipment.